Rosie here at Just Chill Baby Sleep. Today we are talking about early waking and how to solve it, some tips for you. I know it's a big issue for so many of you out there. So what is early waking? What do we call early waking? For me personally, it's anything before 6 a.m. We do get some people who are early birds and some people are night owls, and this goes for adults as well. So some people do naturally just like to wake up and start the day early. However, I think anything before 6 a.m, your little one is unlikely to actually be ready to start the day if everything else is balanced and in place. So this moves me on to the balance, the sleep seesaw I like to call it, which is getting the naps right. So we don't want your little one overtired and we don't want them undertired, because this will affect nighttime sleep, and specifically it will affect the time that they wake in the morning. So an overtired baby, cortisol levels raise, and this cortisol levels really control how we sleep, along with melatonin, our sleepy hormone. So cortisol, which is our stress hormone, actually interestingly how we wake up in the morning, will be rising in the early hours of the morning. So if your little one's overtired, that's not going to help with that. They're going to be in a really light stage of their sleep. If your little one wakes up really grouchy and crying, then that suggests to me they probably need to go back to sleep and they're not ready to get up for the day. Those who wake up really happy and they're just playing, it might be that you need to look at their routine and the previous day, the nap balance of their sleep seesaw. So some little ones, if they're overtired, it can affect it with cortisol levels and waking themselves up earlier than they're really ready for. But undertired babies can also wake up early, so it's a bit confusing. It's either or. So undertired babies might be napping too long or inappropriate times. They might be still doing a third nap that's quite late the previous evening, and that's going to affect it. Or they might be doing a morning nap that's too long, for example. It's about tweaking the routine, trying different things. If it doesn't work, you can always return to what you were doing previously. But any change you make, give it a good few days, week or so, before you might see any change. So don't kind of try it and then think it hasn't worked, like after one night. So see what happens with nap times and looking at routine. Bedtime, also look at bedtime. So if it is because your baby's overtired, putting them to bed later is going to make it worse. So I would always aim for a bedtime around 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is the holy grail of what you might be aiming for. Some babies don't ever do that, so don't be discouraged if your little one doesn't. However, we're looking for around the 7 p.m. window. If your little one is overtired, then actually, interestingly, an earlier bedtime will help with the early waking, so you might try 6:45 bedtime. If it's a child who possibly is undertired, then you're going to want to move the bedtime a little bit later, potentially to maybe 7:15, possibly even 7:30. But I wouldn't go beyond there, because then you're going to risk missing their window, their sweet spot for sleep, where melatonin levels high, sleep pressure is high, and they're really ready to go to sleep at night. Also, if you push it too late, then you risk them becoming overtired, which will cause early waking in itself. So other basics, like bedtime basics for early waking. We want a really good sleep environment, so really nice and dark. When I say dark, really dark. For those who are waking early and you can't break the habit, you want it as dark as possible. Melatonin, our sleepy hormone, we need darkness for this to be produced. But also, when the body's preparing to wake for the day in the early hours, a small bit of light can be enough to stimulate a baby, and they can't tell the time, so they might think, oh, it's morning now, so then they start waking up. So nice and dark. Have a look at any kind of external stimulus. So if you have any particular noises that might be happening in your home, it's unlikely you'll have the heating on at the moment, but for example, heating coming on, someone getting in the shower quite early in the morning if you have a partner who might go out to work quite early, or if you have noisy neighbours or someone who's going to be starting their car at 5:30 in the morning, that's when I'd look at introducing white noise. Turn the white noise on at the beginning of the night, so it's already on, it's on all of the nights, so sleep environment is really nice and consistent. A really boring noise like a whooshing, a shushing, a vacuum cleaner, that kind of thing. And that might drown out the external noise that might suddenly wake them at that time. We also need to look at temperature. So if your baby might be suddenly getting cold in the early hours of the morning, then look at the tog of your sleeping bag, make sure it's appropriate. I do like sleeping bags because it's not going to be covers that have come off. So for older ones, if they still have like a baby blanket instead of a sleeping bag, sometimes I might kick that off and wake up in the early hours because they're actually a bit chilly. How we deal with the early morning wake is really, really important. So number one thing, and this goes throughout the night and bedtime, if baby's not asking for you, you don't need to go in. It's fine to leave them. If they're not crying, they're happy, they're just messing around, they're blowing raspberries, they're moving around their cot even. If they're not asking for you, it's fine to leave them. And it's really positive for them to be happy and at peace in their sleep space. So you can leave them to it. And if they're happy, I would leave them all the way till 6:30, to be honest. If they get distressed, that's when you're going to be going in and comforting them, but keeping everything calm, quiet and dark until really it's time to start the day, to give them the message, this is still the kind of time that we relax, we're not getting up for the day. Don't be tempted to start the day at 5 o'clock because your little one seems awake. I've seen it many times where mum goes in, manages to comfort them, and they stay calm and then they actually drift off again at 6:30 until 7, for example. So if you hadn't continued with that morning sleep, you would have started the day far earlier, and then the whole day is on a really early schedule. And this is the thing we also need to break. So if you start the day at 5 o'clock, then obviously your child is going to be ready to finish their day at 5 p.m. Therefore they get overtired, and then you keep going with this cycle that we want to break. They are all different, so it's working out the missing piece of their puzzle and find out whether it is that they need an earlier bedtime, a later bedtime, whether it's something in their sleep environment that's causing it, whether it's how you're reacting to them. Sometimes if we run in straight away and then asking for us, they're like, oh, morning, hiya. They don't know. As soon as they see mum and dad, they think it's playtime, we're ready to start the day. So perhaps how you're reacting, perhaps the speed in which you're reacting can contribute a little bit. Also, how they get to sleep at night. It's really common if a baby is dependent on their caregiver to get to sleep at night, that's what they're going to want during the night or early morning. And that's okay, if that's okay for you, in which case you'll need to go in and do whatever it was that you did at the beginning of the night to help them off to sleep. If they're able to sleep independently from the beginning of the night, they are more likely to be able to do this at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. So how they sleep is key. You can't expect a baby to get back to sleep in the early hours if you got them back to sleep yourself at the beginning of the night. You're gonna need to help as well if that's the case. Other thing just to cover off, it can genuinely be hunger, and nothing I do is ever about withholding feeds. If you think your baby is genuinely hungry, then of course you would feed them, and then the likelihood is they might go back to sleep. But if they're not hungry, then don't resort to feeding. Try everything else before you do that. Obviously babies kind of under 6 months and even up until 9-10 months, potentially beyond, sometimes wake in the night for a feed, and if they've gone all night until 4:30, 5, they might genuinely be hungry, depending on everything else that's going on. So all of my personalised advice, I'd be looking at the entire routine. However, this is your job watching this video to fit it all together and work out what you think it is. So I hope that was helpful. Just to recap, you're going to be looking at nap times, bedtimes, external stimulus, so noises, making it nice and dark, how you react to baby when they wake up really early, and working out if they are actually hungry and they want to feed. So good luck. I hope your early birds start sleeping in a bit longer for you, and don't worry, it will get easier eventually, and you will get there. Keep watching, guys, and comment on YouTube down below and subscribe to my channel. See you soon.